Hello there, dear friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Why, hello there.
Guys, please do subscribe both channels to EEARTS and have that little bell clicked. You never know, as we're going to break down this whole matrix at some point. It'll actually be fair. Ooh.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. And also on Evolutionary, we just did one exposing how world leaders become super rich, keeping control in the bloodlines, and that includes both presidents and royals. Some might say, wait a minute, presidents and royals? Yeah, is there really a difference? Ooh. And while we're thanking everybody, thank you for your support over on Ko-Fi, where you could do a one-time donation or a monthly donation. Just change the number of coffees to suit you. We do appreciate it. Also on Patreon as well, where you could join the family over there for as little as $1 a month. Please do check out Evolutionary Energy Arts as well, as we do intend to do some new things in the future. And you could also check out more about what we do when we're not making videos. So this is supposedly something that took place in Switzerland by Cern. As you see what looks to be, I don't know, is it a portal? Is it a gateway? Are they opening something up to let more demons come in? Not that we need any more demons in this world.
You know, I tell you what, when I look at that thing is not even good to look at. It's not even good to have spanned across media. It's not good. It's bad.
And, again, when we look down here, what do we got? Readers added context they thought people might want to know. This footage is altered by an iOS app called UFO Video Camera. Additionally, 0 credible sources had verified the claims made in this tweet. Do you find this helpful? Let's try to read it. No. Okay, we get these options. Okay, well, I'll come back to that, and they don't have down what I want to say, which is, well, third eye says, intuition says,
right?
Guides say that there's something real here. Now, really what is going on is the fact that everything you see going on is because we're starting to be able to see through things. Why? Because we are entering an age where it's not about learning, it's about knowing. There's a big difference. Knowing through direct experience. So again, what I want to share with you guys, what we're going to share with this video here, and we're going to focus on the astral plane, astral projection, 4D, and we're also going to touch on interaction with beings that are on the 4D. These are not things that we are conjecturing. We're sharing what we know. How do we know it? Because we've experienced it. Because we experience it every single day. This is just who we are. So, and this is going to be who many of you, in fact, if you gave it 10 years' time, most people will have these abilities at least developing to a perceptible level. Because simply we're ending one age and we're transitioning into another age. It's just that simple. The light from the sun is triggering our DNA to restructure. It literally is. And scientists, you can Google and you'll find scientists have found 3 and even 4 strands of DNA where we were all taught there's only 2 strands of DNA. But some have said we're to be 12-stranded DNA beings. And we're also going from a carbon-based life form, and this is where it's so funny because they want to tax us on our carbon. Well, we're not staying carbon. We're not staying carbon-based. Those of us that are not giving into the system, we're not staying carbon-based. We're becoming something so much more. But even now, if you are blessed with the ability to get 8 hours sleep a night, or if you do have a meditative practice that you perform on a regular basis, you're not tied to this reality.
No, there's so much more out there. It's about acknowledging and understanding. And unfortunately, since we were very, very, very small, we've been taught that there is The only things that are out there is that which we can see and that's tangible. So we're trained out of using our third eye immediately, right away. That's like the first thing. They have babies focus on looking at colors, looking at shapes, and not using their ability to use the two eyes and the third eye, because those work together. They work in tandem. So slowly but surely, they make all efforts to separate the two and then squash out the one, saying it's just make believe. It's really not anything important. It's just your mind making things up. Well, that's not true. We've all been born and blessed with this gift. You know, when I was young, I saw so many different entities, and my children, one of my daughters in particular, she can see quite a few entities. And it's because there's no understanding of the difference between your two eyes that see 3D and the third eye. So there's a whole slew of information out there that you feel through your heart chakra that's really important. We can feel and understand and experience through the heart chakra.
Yes, we can know so much, and we can explore. And there are certain monks and certain, philosophical religious orders that in the day would do things such as in a particular point in the training, a person would literally be walled in to a room, like bricked in, so they couldn't escape. And they would be basically meditating day and night in darkness in order to induce an out-of-body experiment. And this is something that some traditions will do. Now, secret societies understand when we say these secret societies, not all, because some are run by people that we might call opportunists, might even call them quacks, so to speak. People just looking to scam people, make a buck, etc. But yeah, those in the know understand how consciousness works. Everything about us is multi-leveled, multifaceted. We're not all here, and not even all of us, the bigger us, is encapsulated in this body. This body is just a vehicle. It's just a vehicle. So when you look to science, and science will say, I guess if you surveyed 100 scientists, you'd probably get the majority of them. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe more people are waking up because of the times. But they will talk about the fact that consciousness comes about through chemical and electrical reactions because of the physical matter of the brain. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. And if anybody's ever experienced an outer-body experience, you would know this. And I've had 3 close friends that have been clinically dead for relatively long periods of time. One was even toe tagged and brought to the morgue and then came back. They all had the same experience, and that was one of first seeing themselves from above and looking down at their bodies, looking down at their the scene below them, seeing family members, seeing people crying, remember where they were sitting in each chair. Well, this one was pacing up and down. This one was walking in and out of the room. The doctors, the nurses came in. They, hit me with the, the electricity, etc. All these type of things. Watching it all happen. Still watching it. Still conscious, but out of the body. Now, we can induce this state also through practicing. And, there's a couple PDFs I'm going to give you at the end. I'll link them with the video by Robert Bruce, all about astral projection. And then there's one, Initiation into Hermetics, which when I was 7 years old and moved to a new house, there was nothing in this new house at all. Everything was cleaned out besides one book in the basement, just sitting there waiting for me to discover it. And I couldn't understand it at 7 years old, but I kept reading it and I could get a little bit, and I started to practice it by the time I was in 5th grade. And what was I practicing? I was practicing meditations on controlling the elements. And again, this is all part of the makeup of, who we are, the bigger the bigger person. And this is stuff that, again, is hidden in the secret societies. Your world leaders are all brought up with this knowledge. They understand everything. They understand, as we were talking about in the last video, that belief systems, the major belief systems, the major political ideologies that are shared on this globe, they're all about control, really. They're all about limiting possibilities in the conscious waking human mind, when in reality we are having a experience here where really we can manifest and create things that would boggle the mind and delight the senses. And delighting the senses is fine, because that's what this realm is all about. 3D is all about a heavy, sensual experience. Again, the good things in life, like, New York cheesecake, or maybe a great pizza, or the best ice cream, those are things we experience in this density. This density is not intended to be a hell by any means.
No, there's a lot of things that we can thoroughly enjoy. And embarking on all of this, I find it to be very helpful when you want to wake up to different things in your life or different perceptions. It's very helpful to start with your heart chakra, healing the heart chakra, because your perception of everything is going to be filtered through that heart chakra. When we have blocks of self in the solar plexus, blocks in the heart chakra, the perception's not going to be viewed in a way that's going to be very advantageous to our experience. So that's really where we start. We start with healing, and believe me, these controllers, they're very deliberate about the trauma that they induce and the trauma that they bring in to people's lives, because it will prevent you from having those beautiful perceptions and understandings of the world we live in.
And see what Cindy's saying, that then it made me decide, let's show this, because this is a beach. Could be any beach. I'm not sure which one. In 1970. What do you notice? Well, one thing you might notice is everybody seems lean. And if you ever see any pictures, any photos from, say, the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, I think one of the things that's going to really hit you is the lack of obesity out in the general public. We were healthier back then in many, many ways. And one of the things to recognize is, again, the physical body does affect us. It absolutely affects us spiritually. It affects our ability to travel out and about. It affects our ability to perceive things. If you want to develop your extrasensory perceptive abilities, then you really have to clean up the physical body. It's wonderful to get out in the sunshine. Again, sunshine on the face, sunshine on the forehead will help the pineal gland decalcify. Why do we have fluoridated water? It's not for your teeth. No, it's to keep you calcified as far as your pineal gland. If they have a public where everybody, or even 50%, maybe even 30 or 40% of the people had full use of their pineal glands, their entire system, this whole house of cards, it's just like pushing that first domino. Every single domino is going to fall. Everything they built is going away. It will not be able to stand. If you can induce an out-of-body experience to where I'm not the body. I've experienced it. I've been outside of my body. I've verified things. And again, people have been trained. They've been trained by our governments to go and remote view a room, see what's in that room. And they've often been very, very successful. There's been a lot of declassified documents regarding this, and we've talked about this in past videos. And, Cindy is so gifted in so many ways. And able to remote view all the time at will. Really, it's just something that is part of her makeup. And I've had many out of body experiences as well. Last night, I was basically out and about. That's an old Irish thing. You know, there's an old Irish saying about astral projection, and it's mum's out and about. Out and about. Yes, yes. You're out there traveling, having fun. I love the feeling of flying in astral projecting. It is so addictive. I mean, to me, it's one of the best feelings ever. I love the feeling of knowing that I'm out of the body and exploring. And so sometimes I will go back to my old haunts. I will go back to where I grew up. I will go back to places where, as a kid, we camped or things like that. Or even, obviously explore new worlds, because we can explore new worlds. And we could explore so many different worlds on the astral plane. Buddhist monks have actually documented many different layers and levels to the astral plane, and that's something else we should probably do a video on, because what they've discovered is it's so vast, it's so expansive. Now, the controllers, they're basically only on the lower astral plane because their vibration frequency is so low. Even though they understand the dynamics of how we do these things, they're limited because of their frequency. The key, like Cindy was saying, I was telling her, like now, I feel like I'm exiting through the crown chakra more than ever. You can exit through the crown, you can exit through the third eye chakra, you can leave your body from multiple portals. When we're passing on, we want to try to focus on leaving through the crown.
Mm-hmm. Leaving through the crown. And it will be, from what I can see and what I have seen, is that it's a very freeing experience. When we decide to astral travel, leave the body, it's the heart chakra is the easiest way in and the easiest way out. And again, I'm always going to talk about healing your emotions, because when you activate these abilities, they can create hormone changes, which can change our minds, change our moods. It changes the way things are perceived. So I'm always going to talk to people about healing your emotions before we really move on to using these abilities. It's something that is gifted to us, but it needs to be taken seriously, and it needs to be treated in such a way that there's a lot of respect to it. And we're just not taught that as small children. The controllers are taught a completely different way. They understand astrology, they understand energy, they understand all of this stuff from a very young age. But many of us who have been through so much trauma already are just now discovering these gifts. And believe me, it can be an emotional roller coaster. So we have to have ourselves good and grounded and tied down, and then we start to explore.
Absolutely. And, I've shared with you guys before that the first OBE I had that I remember was when I was 5. But then I also do remember exploring my aunt's home, which was a Victorian home. It's kind of like the family home that they had bought in the Depression. So much of my mom's family all came and lived together. It was like 13 people living in one house to make ends meet in the Depression. And my mom was born in 1929, and she said her childhood was the most blessed thing ever. They didn't have a lot of money. They had to all live together, but they had a great time. They had a great time. They had such a strong sense of family, and there was so much support. That house has always kind of haunted me in some ways. So I would find myself roaming about it, just being drawn to it. But it's because of all the ancestral memories that are there. There is something to our DNA memories that we can access. And then again, we also tend to stay in the same soul groups, not always exclusively. It doesn't have to be every single time. Not like you can't meet a new person, a new soul, so to speak. But we tend to kind of travel in these same soul groups. It's just part of it. And the realization, again, that like with my brother who died, he was 16, I was 5 when he passed on. It wasn't the first time we worked together, and we've had different roles in different times. And so he's been supporting me as a guide from the other side, but there's been times when I supported him from the other side. There's been times when We've supported each other both in incarnation. Again, when you recognize that what are we? We are consciousness itself. That is what we are. So the body is just a temporary vehicle. And this is truly stated very clearly in the Mahabharata. It's part of the Santana Dharma, which means kind of the eternal truth, the eternal wisdom, the eternal way of what you would term Hinduism. But from Hinduism, Buddhism springs, as well as Jainism and parts of the Sikh belief system as well. Sikhi is kind of a merger of a monotheistic point of view with Hinduism. But again, there is a set of truths. There's no one dogma that has everything perfectly understood. And in fact, when we even get to 50, we still have things that we don't understand.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a lifelong situation. And a lot of people ask Mike and I, well, what belief system do you guys follow? And honestly, just speaking for myself, I've never been able to follow one. I've always wanted to, but that's the spiritual piece of me. That's that piece of me understanding that there's something beyond this veil. And what we need to do is look for ourselves. What do you believe? Well, look for yourself and see what is important to you, what sticks with you, what resides inside of you. These are all things that we can, through exploration of other understandings, we can find for ourselves. We don't have to devote ourselves to any one thing. We really don't. I mean, this experience is ours. It's ours. It's for us. It's for our soul growth. And there's many different people in our lives, ancestors and family members that are on the way coming into our lives to help us grow, to help us understand, to help us find meaning in things that are important to us. So looking at everyone in your life, maybe they rub you the wrong way, maybe their energy doesn't feel right, but look at that. Maybe that's something that needs a little bit of work. Maybe that's something that's going to help you grow. So everything becomes a really blessed experience. Even if it doesn't feel good, it's for our growth.
And these times, again, everything is changing so fast that what you should be so excited about is the fact that you can probably do now in maybe a year, maybe months, what it might take a decade to do. However, again, there are certain things that we have to go in stages. And this is, this is basically a representation of somebody embracing the tree in Qigong. And it's a part of Qigong we call Zhangzhuang, which means just basically standing in a still pose, gathering life force. And in the past, when I was doing this, I could get into a deep meditative state. And my teacher would go to the park and might stand like this for 2 hours, literally 2 hours or more. Might spend a whole Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon. The body's there, but they're not fully there. They're out and exploring. And so for me, while I have always used this to draw in and gather the life force, now I'm at the point that just standing like this for 5 minutes, I feel like I'm already ready to leave the body after like 5 minutes. I'm ready to go explore. And it would just be a matter of withdrawing through the crown chakra. This is something that Sri Yukteswar had spoke of. There are many astral planets teeming with astral beings. The inhabitants use astral planes or masses of light to travel from one planet to another faster than electricity and radioactive energies. Sri Yukteswar. So that's a teacher of Yogananda who was talking about that. And Yukteswar is the one that gave us that calendar of the Yuga, the cycle of the Yugas in print for us to understand. Obviously, this is a being with amazing abilities, and this is going back into the latter part, I think Yukteswar was probably born, I might be wrong, I could look it up for you guys, but he lived throughout the 1840s to maybe like around 1910 or something like that. before passing on. Amazing teacher, amazing being. He actually could manifest and did manifest another apparently physical body in front of Yogananda when he was in a meditative state over 100 miles away, when he had to reach him and tell him that he was about to leave this physical realm, so come home. And so, he could impart everything person to person that he wanted to impart before leaving the vehicle. And again, the body is a vehicle. And that's the important part. We are having a temporary human experience. You might think, I am a human being. Well, you're a human being right now. You're not always. And that's something that might blow paradigms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a slow process. We have to take this in tiny bites because there is a lot of information. When you start to wake up, spirituality is all around you, on all sides of you, above you, below you. There's so much to learn. And as we are waking up, as that light body is being turned on, our ancestral information starts to come in too. And you might find yourself having all kinds of different questions and wanting to explore different things, different modalities. You might find yourself wanting to find 10 lines of information to come into your field all at once. But we have to explore things one at a time. So feeling that overwhelmed feeling and that wanting to know everything now kind of feeling, that's normal. That's par for the course when your light body is becoming activated and it's going online. These are things that can happen that can really kind of get you muffled or mixed up sometimes. And sometimes you just have to sit down and get quiet and not worry about anything. See what floats to the top. Try to find a priority, but there's no one right way to awaken. It takes time. It takes time.
It does. And so I wanted to share also, this, spirit orbs. And we've talked about this before. These are beings. Not all. I mean, some might be dust, etc., etc. But when we're talking about spirit orbs, we're talking about this is kind of our natural state of being. This is what we are. When we leave the body, this is, again, what we eventually become. At first, we might be like a typical ghost.
We take on our bodily form, the body that we have been here with for so very long. That energy stays with us. So when we lose a pet, when we lose a loved ones, in the very beginning, they go out and they look as they did for, a while until they start to realize and understand where they're at and what they can do.
Exactly. So you might see somebody that recently died, and if you were able to perceive them, if their energy was strong enough, a lot of times it's from the trauma. You would see them in a human type of shape, but perhaps translucent, perhaps see-through, maybe just a little bit more of an energetic form that looks kind of humanish. But as time goes on, they'll eventually understand that they don't have to hold that form anymore. And so when we're in this orb shape form, all we do is we think of a place. Think of a place. And then we go. So, again, the earth itself, what is the true shape of the earth? Well, look, because the earth is a being, again, on a different density. Look at the orbs. What's their shape? That's the shape of the earth.
They can do things like teleport, as long as they have been somewhere and they can recreate it, then they can just go instantly from one place to the next. Light is information and it's instant. So when it hits us, we see everything and we feel everything. We see and feel a whole storyline, a whole load of information all at once. And that's when we have to sit down and get quiet and start to unpack this information, because we see things and we have vocabulary words that we have to match to the information, and we're kind of limited to the 3D vocabulary words that we've been given. So sometimes to channel, it does take a little while to unpack the information.
So you can see, and I've I've gotten photos like this myself too, where you can see actual faces in the orbs. That's because that's them. That's them. When we pass on, again, this is the form that we take. We are eternal beings, so we do have all the time in the world, so to speak of. I was having a discussion with a young lady that has been visiting us for 4 years, I think now, about 4 years now, since Nevada. And, we see her on a regular basis. She comes by, checks in on us. She plays with the dogs. She does play with the dogs. The dogs can perceive her. And often they'll go barking and they'll go flying outside into the yard when she draws them outside. She's passed on, so she's in spirit form. I was talking to her last night. So again, with us, it's not that we're telling you out of something we've arrived at from studying all these different sources. No, these are direct experiences. So I had just got done astral projecting, and then she was there, and then we were just talking about these things. And, she was saying how she will, when people are passing on, because, we are located pretty close to both a cemetery and a hospital. And so we do get a lot of people that cross over. When people are passing on, if they're freaking out, if they're upset, she'll go and hold their hands. And, how many people that are passing on can see people on the other side? That's so common. That happens all the time. And it's because, again, we're transitioning out of the body. It's natural. You're going to start to see clearly the people that have been around you the whole time that you can't see when, again, you're bogged down by everything that they feed us, everything that they put in the air, everything energetically that's penetrating us, everything that we're drinking, fluoride, etc. Well, when you get out of the body, then all of a sudden you can see them. And this is part of the natural transition. So she'll go and she'll hold the hands of the spirit transitioning out of the body until they're out. Another gentleman that we call Butch, who takes care of not just this graveyard close to us, but a couple other ones close by. Sometimes he will appear to us as a, kind of like a guy that looks like a farmer, caretaker farmer, would say, a gentleman in a human form. Other times he's just an orb. But he also is helping people transition. He wants to help people transition. So what are angels? Angels are it's more of a job. It's more of just a soul that wants to help people, a soul that's there to support other people in their experiences and their transitions. So yes, we can become angels, absolutely. And yes, some angels are walking amongst us right now.
And it's about learning how to figure out when they're around and when they're not, and listening to that inner voice. And the more you take care of yourself and the cleaner your temple, the more you have a meditative practice, you are going to be able to experience these things and perceive these things in a way that's positive, and it's going to enrich your life, and it's going to help you embrace your ancestors. And they have come here too. They've come here to assist you. But they're not going to do things for you. This is your time. This is your turn to walk in the 3D, for you to experience things. So they're not going to give you all of the answers. Any entity that is giving you information that is going to interfere with your human life, that's not good. I'm telling you right now, that's not good. We are dealing with benevolent beings who are not going to interfere with our human experience here. That's one thing that I can't stress enough, that they really should not be interfering with that.
So the pineal gland, is it the seat of the soul? Absolutely. It is. Because, and again, when we go and we look at Qigong, and we've talked about Qigong. We have a Qigong playlist, meditation Qigong playlist. The whole purpose of Qigong, truly, it has multi-levels to it. The first benefit is physical health. your physical health gets better. It strengthens as you practice Qigong. Then your emotional health gets better. You start to have more of a peace and a calmness, a tranquility. And then it actually feeds and builds the soul, and it strengthens the soul. It gives the soul more options when the soul is no longer in the vehicle. So if we are spending time practicing Qigong, meditation, yoga, we're actually building on ourselves that will help our position when we're out of the body to decide what we want to do next. It gives us more choices. You could view it as, you could say in some ways it could be analogous to going to a college of higher learning, so to speak. Whereas, there's going to be more doors open to you, more avenues open to you in a density way as you learn these practices, spend time in these practices, cultivate the life force, cultivate the consciousness, and grow. So yes, the pineal gland absolutely is the seat of the soul. And, touching in, I just wanted to touch in again on the 3 dantians.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole science to this and a whole understanding. And these things are nice to understand for confirmation, to really get that in your mind of how things work so that you can formulate how it works for you. These things should be studied. I wish they were studied from childhood because, gosh, what's important? These are the things that are important.
So when we look, and again, we've touched on this in more depth in other videos, but I just want to put this together for you. As Cindy was saying, the preliminary is you have to work through your emotions. Chakras get shut off because of emotional blockages and things that we can't purge, things that we haven't processed. And so the number one key, there's stages to this. First, you have to get physically healthy and work on that. And yes, maybe, like for me, for instance, I've ruptured L4 and L5. And I've also had Lyme's disease. Yet, as long as I stay strong and I'm practicing regularly, taking in a lot of life force, I can keep these things to the point where they do not interfere in my life at all. But it takes constant, regular practice. And again, it also takes constant, regular practice of purging and letting go of negative energies and not exposing us to more negative energies. There is a show that we've been watching, and so talking to you again about how the girl that comes by that checks in on us, well, she checked in, and she was just noting some energies that like to creep around when we're playing that show. And now we know that show opens portals. We started by talking about portals. Recognize portals are created by your smartphones. They're created by your smart TVs. They're created by your Wi-Fi. They're created by the towers all around us. They're created by Cern, HARP. There's portals everywhere for these dark, creepy crawlies to crawl through. So even when we're watching this one particular show, which, it's maybe a naughty pleasure of us, but we do find it intriguing because this particular show does touch on these aspects of our reality, that the dead can still speak to us. We can still hear the dead. So, it is something that kind of interests us as we experience it on a daily basis. But at the same time, she was saying, I see the dark ones. And those dark energies come, when you're watching that one particular show, and they can't get too close. And then, again, this is why we sage. And we've had people say, oh yeah, Stranger Things. I couldn't watch the whole thing because I could feel the energy. Yeah, absolutely. These dark energies are very, very real, and we're being subject to them all the time. So we must constantly be saging. We must constantly be rooting and grounding. But as you draw life force and your ability to draw life force in your body increases, you will have, it's just like, your shields are up. Sorry, Captain, the shields are down. I can't get the power up. Yeah, well, you get the power by intentionally taking the life force into your body. And you can do that through proper breathing practices, Qigong, yoga, any of these meditative practices will work. When your chakras are shut down, you're not going to be functioning fully. You first have to open up the chakras. You have to initiate the flow of energy throughout the body in an organized, systemic way. You need to have, there's 12 primary meridians in the body that feed energy to all the major organs. There's 8 extraordinary vessels that hold the energy, and then there's 3 main reservoirs of energy, the lower dantian, the middle dantian, and the upper dantian. And they actually overflow upwards. So when your lower dantian is full, and that's basically about 2 inches below your navel, it's also the hara point in the Japanese system. This here will give us physical abundance. And when it's overflowing, it'll flow upwards. So the life force will pour into the middle dantian. And then we fill that up and we gain emotional stability. When that flows up to the upper dantian is what will empower the third eye. And this is all something that takes a lot of practice. You need to have good sources for guidance in doing this, because it can be dangerous. As far as opening up things prematurely can be dangerous. But at the same time, it is dangerous to walk around the world blind, as most people are blind to everything going around. When your pineal gland's functioning, you're no longer blind. You can see through. And you could also have these quote-unquote extrasensory perceptions, these paranormal abilities. They're all normal. They're just things that happen turned off during the dark age by the controllers. And yes, even if the controllers weren't there, these would diminish in a Kali Yuga, and then they would grow again as we go back towards the Satya Yuga. So I just wanted to give you a brief overview on that. Again, anybody that's interested in learning more, we have many people, I'd say most people we see either every other week or once a month. And so you could set up an appointment by going through Evolutionaryenergyarts.com, and we'll get back to you and set up an appointment. Usually within 2 or 3 weeks, we could get somebody scheduled. But again, it is a process that takes patience, although in these times, boy, we can achieve so much compared to in times past.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then there's just so much information to filter through. It's really difficult to say, well, where do I start? This is what I have. What do I do with it? And a lot of times this information definitely runs in families. So a lot of people now who are starting to realize they have abilities. Well, remember, your children are going to have abilities. And when your children are done being children, they might need help with those abilities. So sometimes it's good to get an understanding of it yourself so you can be a support point, because we do have a lot of star seeds coming in.
Always know and remember that you are more than the physical body. That's from Robert Monroe, Monroe Institute. They've done a lot of research also into these out-of-body experiences. Again, where's the place to start? I would start with a regular either yoga, Qigong, or both, meditation, mantras, all the above. I mean, these are practices, again, if you want to prioritize the soul growth, then you will prioritize these things. Also, clean up your diet, get rid of all the toxins, eat as natural and simply as possible. And again, the temple is the body, and it is kind of the groundwork. It's kind of like you could view it as the launching pad for the soul. And Mantak Chia does a really good job in many, many books. Again, if you want to learn some more about Qigong and you want to just start reading, Dr. Yang Jingming or Mantak Chia, both are great sources to start learning about Qigong. We have videos on our playlist. Do the short video every day if you can. Takes about 20 minutes because that will basically get rid of negative energy, and it will make sure that the energy is flowing to all the major organs to help prevent the dis-ease and disharmony that comes to us all. And go from there. It really is just amazing. And when you know, because you've been outside of your body consciously, that you are not the body. There is nothing more reassuring. Again, the other thing, too, that comes through is that all these belief system constructs of torture and everything, these are the result of conditioning. And a lot of times it's a result of feelings of guilt. If anybody ever does experience a so-called hell or a hellish experience when they're out of the body, it's because of what they've experienced when they're in the body and what they expect to experience when they're out of the body. This is why we have nonstop wars, nonstop trauma. Why? Because if a soul dies in warfare, tragically, traumatically, it's more likely to not go any higher than the lower astral realm, and that's the home turf of the controllers.
Mm-hmm. And they're going to be repeating these traumatic emotions over and over until they realize that they can get out of that. And that's why it is so important. Just do the healing that you need to do on this realm. Another really simple starting point is, meditate on a candle, light a candle, look at it for a couple of minutes. If that's all you can do 60 seconds, start with 60 seconds. That starts to open up your world, and it starts to help you prioritize, like, what do I do next? Because believe me, when we wake up, there's so much information. It's just like poured onto you. It's like a fire hose, it's just so much information. But, we're all here to help each other.
Absolutely. So I have attached some interesting PDFs here. This is Robert Bruce, Mastering Astral Projection, 497 pages. And this is a treatise on astral projection, also by Robert Bruce, 122 pages. And then Initiation into Hermetics, 171 pages. It's in a course of instruction in magic theory and practice. And what is this? It's yoga. That's what it is. It's yoga. Now in the West, it's magic. But in the East, it's yoga. What's yoga? Union with the divine. The divine's in you. You don't need anything else. You just got to discover who you are.
Indeed.
As always, much love, God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.